Throughout season 1 and 2, almost everyone from our cast got to appear on screen at some point. There were a couple of people that didn't want to, but that was one of the things that we got to do for all the extras in this episode. You'll see me, you'll see, there's me. I have this goal as a director, fun side fact, where I would love to just kind of, if I ever appear in anything, I would want to be like this tortured extra, you know? One of my goals one day is to die terribly in battle somewhere in the background. So we'll see about that. This was my first experience doing that. But yeah, so that second person you saw there is Kimbrel. She was our PA among a lot of other things. And this right here is Heath, the brains and bucks behind the project. In season 2, he takes this concept of being a tortured character in your own story to the extreme that you have to watch season 2 to know exactly what I mean. This character that you see him playing ends up coming back, and I had him do this a few different ways. The character, so we had some choices to go with for later, and some of them were actually a little bit weirder than how he plays it here, but ended up going with kind of the character that we were going to use in season 2. Now, these two scenes with Rob, where he's like, "It's fine," and then he starts crying, that was actually not in the script. So Heath and I had this idea while we were filming, and we just kind of picked up those scenes while we could. And the funny thing to me is that, so we filmed those two scenes after we're filming this, what you're seeing right now, the rest of this episode. But when they're played together, so Dax of course didn't have that scene in mind when he was filming here, but when they're edited together, it kind of looks like Rob is having a bad day because he was crying, that he still is not a deep one, and that was not necessarily planned in advance. It was just kind of the power of editing, how that came out. This handshake here, the two of them made it up, Sky and Peter. And this part right here, so you see where he's covering his face. Dax was having a hard time not laughing because it was so ridiculous, especially that part right there. So I just told him, just cover your face at that point. Now, I have to talk about Sky for a second, because it's so hilarious how similar he is to his character, Dave. Megan, our costume director, created all these costumes for all the characters, but Sky just kind of came. That's just how he already dresses. It was pretty funny. He was showing that off when he was auditioning. He was like, "Hey, I've got the clothes to fit the part." And you'll see there's a behind the scenes interview with him and a bunch of other cast kind of in their street clothes, and he still looks a lot like Dave. And it doesn't end just there. He also just like Dave, he's also a musician. So the theme song that you hear at the end of the episodes, that's Sky's creation. And he would ride up to our, to filming, to our shoot days on a motorcycle. It's just very funny to me. In so many ways, he feels a lot like the character and kind of embodies that energy. Fortunately, he's not high all the time. That's just acting. Some of the things that we were talking about, Peter and I, for the character of Mike, is that he's kind of the mom of the group. Although there's a lot of contradiction there, because he's the mom except for when he isn't the mom. He's the one that's saying, we've got to invite more people into the cult until this weirdo shows up, and now all of a sudden he's not inviting. So he's definitely a character of opposites in some ways. Now, I've got to talk a little bit about Glenn. So Glenn, who plays Ben, I mentioned a little bit in my commentary on episode 1 that originally Peter was going to play that part. Now, Glenn was also one of my top choices for Ben, and I kind of had a similar impression that I had with Peter, where I could tell that he was good and I really wanted to work with him. If not on this project, then some other project. So I kind of had him noted that way. And the only reason why I didn't choose him initially was because his first kind of audition for Ben wasn't as close to what I had envisioned as Peter's. But eventually I was like, okay, now that Peter is going to be Mike, Glenn is going to be great for Ben. And I ended up sending him this email where I wrote all these details and kind of like some imagined backstory and stuff for the character of Ben. And when he showed up on set, he was just perfectly Ben. And so it was all it was needed was a little bit extra direction. And that's a good testament to his abilities as an actor. I thought that was pretty cool. These donuts. So, yeah, Peter didn't know what he looked like when we were filming this. He just kind of smeared a donut on himself and only knew how much he had smeared until after we had filmed. It's so, yeah, it was pretty ridiculous. It's one thing that I felt pretty bad about, kind of a mistake that I made here as a director was I should have been telling them to chew these donuts and then spit them out. Because we took so many takes, they ate a lot of donuts. You can see Dax right there is trying to hide how sick he feels. So that was a major oversight on my part. Although Peter was just kind of happily eating them anyway and kind of leaning into that sugar high a little bit. We actually were kind of like worried about him, like, is he okay? But he was just acting and pretending to be a lot more bothered by the sugar than he really was.